S for decades. France has controlled the economies of its former African colonies through the CFA franc, a currency tied to the euro and managed by French institutions. But that era is coming to an end. President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso has announced the creation of Sira, a new gold-backed currency that could shatter France's economic dominance in West Africa. This is more than just a financial decision. It's a revolutionary step toward real independence. But what does this mean for Burkina Faso, its allies, and the global economy? And why is France so desperate to stop this from happening? Chapter 1. The burden of the CFA franc. For decades, France has maintained economic and political influence over Francophone Africa through the CFA franc, which was created in 1945 by a decree from General Charles de Gaulle. Initially, African nations using this currency were required to deposit 100% of their foreign exchange reserves in the French treasury. Over time, this requirement was reduced to 70% and then to 50%. But even today, half of their national reserves remain in French-controlled banks. This setup has meant that these countries had no control over their monetary policies, could not issue currency without approval from France, and were often subjected to decisions made in Paris rather than in their own capitals. For Burkina Faso and other nations in the region, this arrangement has stunted economic growth and reinforced dependency on France. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, now united in their rejection of neo-colonial interference, are actively seeking alternatives to the CFA franc. By establishing a new currency, Burkina Faso is taking a decisive step toward cutting this financial tether once and for all. Chapter 2. Traoré's vision for Burkina Faso since assuming power. Captain Ibrahim Traoré has made it clear that his leadership is focused on dismantling the last vestiges of French imperialist influence in Burkina Faso. His policies have consistently aimed at reducing foreign control over the nation's affairs, and his latest initiative, the push for monetary sovereignty, is no different. In an interview in February 2024, Traoré made a powerful statement that encapsulated his mission. "Perhaps everything we've done has surprised you, hasn't it? Don't worry, more changes are coming that might still surprise you. We will break every tie that has kept us in slavery." This statement reflects the calculated and deliberate nature of his policies. Critics who claim that, as a military leader, he lacks the expertise to govern, effectively may find themselves reconsidering their stance. The transformation Burkina Faso is undergoing is not impulsive. It is part of a well-planned strategy to reclaim national sovereignty. And Traoré's words signal that the most significant changes are still to come. Chapter 3. The creation of the S and the role of the Treasury Deposit Bank. To successfully transition away from the CFA franc, Burkina Faso has taken a crucial step: the establishment of the Treasury Deposit Bank. Unlike most African nations, which have central banks regulating their monetary systems, Francophone West African countries rely on the Central Bank of West African States, which operates under France's influence. This arrangement has long prevented them from independently printing or issuing currency, controlling interest rates, or setting monetary policies without French approval. The Treasury Deposit Bank changes this dynamic completely. With its creation, Burkina Faso will no longer be required to deposit half of its reserves in a French-controlled bank. Instead, the nation will have full authority over its financial reserves, marking a significant move toward economic self-determination. General Abdourahmane Tiani of Niger once remarked, "Money is a sign of sovereignty, and we are engaged in a process of recovering our total sovereignty. It is no longer a question of our states being the cash cow of France." Burkina Faso's decision to establish the Treasury Deposit Bank aligns perfectly with this sentiment. This new banking institution is not just about breaking away from France. It also aims to make banking services more accessible to the Burkinabe population. Unlike the current centralized banking system that often excludes rural communities, the Treasury Deposit Bank will operate through a vast network, extending its services to regional, provincial, and departmental levels. This ensures that people from all parts of the country will have access to financial services, further strengthening Burkina Faso's domestic economy. Beyond serving individual citizens, the bank will cater to a broad range of clients, including public institutions, state-owned companies, local authorities, international organizations, non-governmental organizations, and private businesses. Its primary mission will be to manage the banking functions of the public treasury, handling account management, resource collection, and transaction processing. By bypassing the Central Bank of West African states, Burkina Faso eliminates France's ability to interfere in its financial affairs. This move lays the foundation for the eventual introduction of the Sira, a fully sovereign currency that will give Burkina Faso complete control over its monetary policies. The biggest distinction between the Sira and the CFA franc is control. While the CFA franc is regulated by French authorities, Sira will be exclusively managed by Burkina Faso's financial institutions. This autonomy will allow the country to set its own monetary policies without seeking approval from foreign powers, regulate inflation based on national economic needs rather than external interests, promote local industries by controlling exchange rates and financial regulations to favor domestic production and trade, safeguard financial reserves within Burkina Faso rather than depositing them in French-controlled accounts. Chapter 4. The National Gold Reserve. Burkina Faso's control over its gold resources is not just about economic security, it is also about monetary independence. The country is preparing to replace the CFA franc with a new currency. The Sira and gold will play a crucial role in backing this currency. Unlike the CFA franc, which is pegged to the euro and controlled by France, the Sira will be backed by Burkina Faso's own gold reserves. This move is groundbreaking because no other African country using the CFA franc has successfully replaced it with a national gold-backed currency. One of the most significant steps taken by Burkina Faso is the establishment of a national gold reserve. This initiative was discussed during the Council of Ministers meeting on March 20th, 2024, where authorities laid out plans to ensure that mining companies contribute to building the national gold reserves. Previously, gold mining in Burkina Faso was dominated by foreign corporations that extracted vast amounts of gold without leaving much benefit for the local economy. But under the new system, not only are foreign companies restricted from exporting gold, they are also required to contribute gold to the national reserves. This means that Burkina Faso will not only retain more of its gold wealth, but also build a stockpile that can support the Sira when it officially replaces the CFA franc. Another key reform is the revision of the 2015 Mining Code, which was updated in July 2023. These revisions include stricter regulations on gold marketing and the mining industry, making it more structured and transparent. By controlling how gold is mined, processed, and sold, the government ensures that Burkina Faso reaps the benefits of its own resources rather than allowing wealth to flow out of the country unchecked. Chapter 5. Burkina Faso's first domestically produced gold bars. One of the most remarkable achievements in Burkina Faso's gold revolution is the production of its own gold bars. This was made possible through a waste processing initiative that extracted gold from fine coal, a mining residue that was previously discarded as waste. At the Essakane mine, workers processed fine coal and successfully produced 44 gold bars, weighing a total of 93.197 kilograms. These gold bars were then handed over to Burkina Faso's Ministry of Economy, demonstrating that the country can now refine its own gold and keep its wealth within its borders, instead of allowing valuable gold waste to be abandoned or illegally smuggled out. Burkina Faso is now fully utilizing its resources. Chapter 6. Mali's failed attempt to break free. Mali was one of the first Francophone African countries to challenge the CFA system. In 1962, just 1 year after gaining independence, Mali introduced its own currency, the Malian franc. The goal was to achieve true financial independence and break free from France's economic control. However, the experiment was short-lived. A combination of internal divisions, economic pressure, and intense opposition from France forced Mali to abandon its currency and return to the CFA franc in 1984. This failed attempt discouraged other Francophone countries from following suit, reinforcing the idea that breaking away from the CFA system was impossible. Chapter 7. The Eco-Currency That Never Happened. In 2019, it seemed like change was finally coming. Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara and French President Emmanuel Macron announced that the CFA franc would be replaced by a new currency called the ECO. Under this new system, West African countries would no longer be required to store half of their foreign exchange reserves in France, and France would withdraw from managing the currency. But as of 2025, the CFA franc is still in use and nothing has changed. France remains deeply involved in the management of the currency, and the promised reforms never materialized. This failure has further eroded trust in the CFA system and fueled demands for real financial independence. Frustrated by the lack of change, Burkina Faso is now taking matters into its own hands by creating a new gold-backed currency, but it is not acting alone. In September 2023, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger signed the Liptako-Gourma Charter, forming the Alliance of Sahel States. Originally designed as a military alliance to combat jihadist insurgencies, the AES has since evolved into an economic and political union that challenges the influence of the economic community of West African states. In November 2023, finance ministers from the three countries announced plans to create a common currency. A special committee of experts was formed to study how they could establish an independent monetary system, free from French control. The new common currency, tentatively called the Sahel, represents a major shift in African financial history. Unlike the CFA franc, which is controlled by France, the Sahel currency will be managed entirely by the three Sahel states, allowing them to set their own monetary policies and exchange rates. If successful, the Sahel currency could inspire other African nations to follow suit, leading to a broader movement to dismantle the CFA franc system. This could fundamentally reshape the economic landscape of West Africa, reducing France's financial influence and promoting self-sufficiency among African nations. Chapter 8. The Challenges of Building a New Monetary System. According to Tiemoko Kone, an expert on monetary policies and economic unions in West Africa, the successful launch of a new multilateral currency requires careful planning and execution. The three nations must address several critical issues before their shared currency, tentatively named the Sahel, can become a stable and functional reality. The first challenge is coordinating macroeconomic and fiscal policies. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger must ensure that their economies remain closely aligned, particularly in budgetary policies and public spending. Another key requirement is the establishment of a strong monetary institution to oversee the currency. A shared central bank must be created, equipped with the necessary authority to conduct an independent monetary policy. Additionally, the three nations will need to create a unified single market, a step that is crucial for the success of any currency union. This would mean the free movement of goods, services, labor, and capital across their borders, leading to increased economic activity and stronger regional ties. Lastly, mechanisms for crisis management and financial stability must be put in place. One way to achieve this is through common reserve funds and currency swap agreements, which could help stabilize the currency during periods of economic stress. Chapter 9. A New Era for West Africa. President Ibrahim Traoré is making history with this bold move. For the first time in decades, Burkina Faso is taking real control of its financial future, breaking free from a system that has kept it economically dependent on France. By introducing Sira, a gold-backed currency, Traoré is setting a precedent that could change the entire financial landscape of Africa. The question now is, will other African nations follow? Will countries still trapped under the CFA franc system decide that it's time to break free? The world is watching closely, and if Sira succeeds, it could mark the beginning of the end for France's economic grip on Africa. What do you think? Is this the start of a true African financial revolution? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on the latest developments in Africa's economic independence.